Welcome to Cohesive Friendship Unit. My name is Chris. I am here with Jake,
Hey guys.
Brian,
What's going on?
and Jeremy.
Hey, what's up?
The Witcher officially has a teaser, and by teaser I mean basically a full 3-minute long trailer, 2 and change minute long trailer on Netflix, coming out kind of soon. We're going to be talking all about the Witcher trailer and just games getting TV adaptations in general, because it's already happened a little bit and it's continuing to happen. But real quick, we are doing a giveaway for Conan Exiles at 800 subs. We're giving away a Steam code. All you have to do is be subscribed, so we'd appreciate your support. And we'd like to congratulate You Mind We Craft for winning ukulele in our last giveaway at 700 subs. Alright guys, so Witcher. We got a trailer. It came out. What do we think? What do we think about this concept? All that.
I
I thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah. I like the idea of games becoming shows. I think it can work well if it is done well.
Well, yeah, that's. See, we were Jake was
obvious,
Jake was fighting for this to be all The Witcher, and I was like, I think it's
Yeah.
gonna sneak in. I watched Castlevania. I thought it was really good. Also a Netflix original.
I did not, but it's on the list of things to watch.
So the thing with games, and I guess The Witcher is technically a book adaptation, but I think we can all acknowledge that it wouldn't have happened if the game wasn't so wildly successful, or games, I guess. I think the thing with games getting TV adaptations instead of movies is, I think everyone basically agrees that games can't really be captured in a movie because they're just such big experiences. Much like how a lot of times books realistically can't be encapsulated, but games especially are level based. They have long, distinct. A Zelda game is 10 dungeons. That's very hard to capture in a movie. Whereas TV show, you have realistically all the time you need, or at least a much longer time.
I think they've also been smart. Well, actually, so I thought the Witcher trailer looked really good. I think the Witcher, to be full disclosure, I have not finished The Witcher 3. I intend to. I've probably gotten about 70% of the way through the game. And I think the thing that impressed me the most about it was the story, which makes a lot of sense given that it's an adaptation of a series of novels. I think that the choice of The Witcher and Castlevania are both particularly smart because Castlevania seems to have so little plot that it leaves a lot of room for the show writers to kind of flesh it out, whereas The Witcher seems to me almost like they're searching for kind of the next Game of Thrones, like a fantasy series that can be adapted for TV, and it has the added benefit of already having a built-in gaming fan base. So I think they're kind of almost outliers because you gave the example of Zelda dungeons. I don't think watching Link beat some dungeons in a film sounds particularly interesting. The way stories are told in video games is typically pretty different from film and TV. But I think The Witcher neatly fits into that box, so I think it makes a lot of sense that Netflix is really kind of promoting that.
Yeah, this is it's both good and bad for The Witcher, because a lot of people really like The Witcher because the side quests can be as good or better than the main story, and there's just so much to bite off in the world.
They're very narratively rich.
Yeah, and that's both a blessing and a curse to me, and this is another reason why at the end of the day I don't know how well games can adapt to shows, because I can see it going one of two ways. Either they cut all of the really interesting deep side quests, or they dilute it so much that it doesn't even matter, or they just go into these anime, just when they need a filler season, they just blow a season on random
Side quests.
Yeah. I could see them doing that, and I think that it's either I see it as either being overwhelming or diluted to the point of you lose that's what's special about it. But
Well, The Witcher won't have this problem because they're not adapting the games. They're just adapting the novels.
yeah, but I think I don't think this would have happened had the games not taken off.
Yeah, do you think I think it's kind of interesting that they chose to adapt the books rather than the game, which I mean, I don't think anyone else would ever say that about. Like, we're used to movies coming after books, but never after games when there is a book. But like, the video games are just so much more popular than the books. I'm surprised they chose to adapt the book storyline rather than the video game storyline.
I mean, at the end of the day, there's, same
Copyright issues involved.
Yeah,
I think Brian's right. I think that's part of it, is that they don't want to have to also pay CD Projekt Red. But I think it's really smart. Like, Chris brings up a good point. How do you even go about adapting the way that a narrative is told in a game, especially an RPG like The Witcher, where player choice is really relevant? How do you adapt that to TV? You don't. Yeah, fuck that. I don't really think they're adapting a game. I think they're adapting... I really think this is more about Netflix trying to find their Game of Thrones, their big fantasy series, and The Witcher is a convenient target with name cachet. And the books are probably cheaper. And because, correct me if I'm wrong, The Witcher series is also Polish. CD Projekt Red isn't just a Polish studio,
Polish.
Yeah.
So it has kind of a different Slavic flair to the world building, which I think will help it stand out. I don't know.
So it's...
I mean,
go ahead, Jake.
a lot of people were hoping for a continuation of The Witcher 3 video game story. Since you said there's going to be no more games, this would be a perfect opportunity to continue that storyline. I mean, I also have not played the game, but I'm assuming there's still story left to be told.
So can I spoil a little bit? Is this spoilers? Are we doing spoilers, or are we just...
So, I mean, the game is 10
Yeah,
years
it's an
old.
old ass game.
It's 5 years old,
Yeah.
but sure. I'll try to put a markup either way.
Spoiler.
Yeah, okay.
To put up the thing where they can click to later in the video, and it says click
not
here to
gonna do
tell
that.
Jay to fuck off or whatever.
Click here to protect your virgin ears.
There you go. At the end of the game, they pretty much Geralt is reunited with Ciri, and you, if you so choose, end up in a romantic relationship with either of the two female leads, and he basically retires, and that's that. So I'm not sure, again, because I don't know how directly they adapted the narrative of The Witcher 3 from the books, but it seems like a natural conclusion to what was written. I mean, I'm sure you can always come up with more stuff, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of roughly how the series ends.
If there's money to be made, they can get him out of retirement.
Yeah, sure. Of course.
Wolverine came out of retirement.
Sure, yeah, and that was gonna be the reference point I used. Could it be the old man Logan Geralt? Sure. And I would play The Witcher 4, and I would watch the show if it was based on the events of after The Witcher 3, but I don't know. I'm not super surprised. I think it's much easier for the writers. I think we saw with Game of Thrones kind of what happens sometimes when the writers lose the source material, so they won't have that problem.
Or when they get a Star Wars contract.
Or when they get a Star Wars contract and decide they'd rather do that. So, yeah.
All right. So, this coming back to the general thoughts on it. This is the first major video game TV show that's been live action. Castlevania's animated, and Netflix has 2 more animated video game adaptations coming, Dragon's Dogma and Cuphead. They're both also going to be animated. Is live action... See, I think live action is particularly challenging to do for video games, because video games inherently are not live action. You can Cuphead, they're gonna mimic the art style of Cuphead. It's gonna be a 30s cartoon,
Was that the Super Mario Brothers Super Show?
No.
Or was that?
That was a movie.
It was a live action one.
That was a movie. The live action one was a movie. Which
okay.
we can also touch on that. But Dragon's Dogma, similar to The Witcher, idea. It's a fantasy world, killing monsters. That's also animated.
So the problem I have with it is it only works if you have the fan base. The Witcher is hugely popular for and that's essentially what you're tapping on. I get just think about the fact this is Netflix and they're trying to establish their network, and a lot of the stuff. I mean, they have some good stuff. I personally don't like any of it, but you know, a lot of it is just kind of garbage. And if you make a whole show relying on the name value of whatever, like eventually people will catch on to that and they won't want to watch it anymore. And fantasy worlds it seems to me, are pretty much the only, or like fantasy or sci-fi or that type of immersive story game. It seems like that's the only genre that would really work. Like Castlevania, I can give it a pass because it was an 8-bit game that, you know, or a 16-bit game that you couldn't really put that much story into it, and it seems like the type of game that deserves more story than it got.
So they can embellish
because of the limitations. Yeah. So they can kind of expound on that. They can go further with that. But like Cuphead, fucking Cuphead, come on,
dude! You're gonna watch one cub drink out of the other cub's fucking noggin.
Cuphead actually
his eyes are gonna go cross-eyed.
Cuphead has a decent, not a decent,
dude,
story, it has a story.
It's deep as fuck. One cub gambles too much, and then he has to fucking kill a dragon.
Gambles and drinks too much.
I mean, that's what happens. But
don't you want to watch a show about that?
I can see Cuphead working.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like that's gonna.
That's like saying I can see Mario working.
Well, Dragon's Dogma is the one that I can see not working because
Dragon's Dogma doesn't really have a story, does it?
No, it has a pretty serious. It has a big story,
does
but
it?
But the issue with Dragon's Dogma, and this is the issue with, it's a story. The issue with Dragon's Dogma is that's a game, and much like The Witcher to an extent, it's an RPG. Like you make it, especially in Dragon's Dogma, you actually make your own character. You choose your love interest, and like that's what is something that makes games special. You know, like that's something that you can never replicate on a show. Well, no, you make choices.
Right.
You role play, which you can't do on a show.
Right, and The Witcher has like a story.
The Witcher has a predefined story,
right.
But you also role play.
Right, but we're like Dragon's Dogma, as you're saying. There's the story is what you do. Like it's not like you don't know the ending before you start the game.
Yeah. It's like I haven't played Dragon's Dogma, but to use for different example, like a Skyrim movie would not be good. Like it has a story, but like that's. And like, I'm not even necessarily saying the story is bad per se, but it just doesn't have that sort of preset narrative that obviously translates to film. The Witcher is like only kind of an RPG because it's usually binary choices, which are very meaningful and they're much more interesting than most choices you get to make in an RPG. But there's a clear, path. You're putting yourself in the shoes of a character. You're not inventing a character from the ground up. I guess I'm kind of agreeing with your broader point, Chris. I think traditional video games would be difficult to translate to TV and film. I think The Witcher and Castlevania are kind of outliers for reasons that I've been trying to explain, and I think I agree with what Brian had said about Castlevania as well. I think that more traditional games like Cuphead and Dragon's Dogma will be more challenging to turn into successful TV shows if they stay close to the source material and don't just use it as kind of a backdrop for their own ideas.
But it's not even that good of a backdrop. Like Castlevania, that's kind of old news. It's not like there's no current games. So like you're literally just tapping into nostalgia and someone else's advertising.
That's probably a big part of it.
I think they see this as an easy pass. Like it's, and I think in some regards it'll work, and in some regards, philosophically, like I guess it's better than a movie for sure. I'm still like hugely against video game movies, but like if you're gonna do a linear, like a TV movie type thing, a TV show's the way to do it, and I think it could be really interesting if it's done right, but I think it has a lot of potential to be done wrong.
So I was going to ask,
like all of it.
Would you all rather have a Witcher movie or 3 Witcher movies? Like one or I don't know how many Witcher books there are. I assume there's 3. I could be wrong.
I think there's 7.
Okay. Well, would you rather
I'll
have
look it up.
a number of Witcher movies or a Witcher show?
Show.
Yeah, in this case,
shows.
it lends itself to a show.
I would almost always rather have a show, a good show.
For
But-
everything? Or just
Yeah.
for games?
Everything.
Well, hopping back in like the Wayback Machine, I think right before Halo Reach was released, there was a Halo miniseries called
Forward Unto Dawn?
Forward Unto Dawn, which was fantastic, and that was like 2 or 3 kind of short episodes, and it was great.
Rooster Teeth, I think, directed or produced that.
Yeah. And I think that kind of lends itself well to games that don't necessarily have this linear story or this predefined story like The Witcher, where you can kind of flesh out some sort of side quest, or in the case of Halo, this was just like a planet with a side story, and just kind of do it in like a mini series.
They're just another character. You know, it's believable because they're just another character in
And
that world.
It's possible. I mean, the Chernobyl miniseries did amazing, so we know it's profitable to do something like that.
So, who is this? There's a trolley going by. Who is this for? And I guess this kind of applies beyond The Witcher. Like, is this for people who played The Witcher, or because they're already gonna kind of know what happened, or people who read the book? Like, is this for people who haven't interacted with Witcher media at all, or is this like fan service? Because Castlevania was 100% fan service because, like Brian said, there was not a whole lot of stuff. So if you were a Castlevania fan and you wanted an actual good story, you would watch that show. And I imagine I have no idea who Cuphead's for, honestly. But Dragon's Dogma, I assume, is going to be entirely for dedicated fans or people who have never heard of Dragon's Dogma, don't even know it's a video game adaptation. But who is The Witcher for?
I think it's for everyone. I think Jeremy nailed it when he said this is Netflix's attempt at getting their own Game of Thrones. It's high budget.
Yeah.
It looks
I thought it was high budget until it wasn't, if that makes sense. There were like a couple shots in the trailer, like there was like a monster hand that really like wasn't doing it for me. It looked good sometimes, but it also looked really bad sometimes. To me.
Yeah, I get that. And I think, I don't know. I mean, I could give excuses, but I think that's bound to happen at a certain point, especially when you're doing live action with so many, like it's about killing monsters, and you don't have live action monsters, and you only have so much budget to CGI monsters into a movie or into a series.
It's also not a proven success yet. You know what I mean? I think they're betting that it's going to be a big success. But even if you go back to the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones, it took some seasons for the cash to really start rolling in.
Yeah.
And even throughout Game of Thrones, I mean, it's a TV show. It's so much longer than a movie. There's so much more to produce. Even great shows have a couple dubious effects scattered across.
Yeah, this is part of why I don't like shows as much, personally. Okay, cool. Anything else we want to say about The Witcher? About games coming to the small screen in a new way?
I want a fucking Halo movie.
Well, that was almost
Yeah.
going to happen. Thank you, Peter Jackson.
I
I'd
know.
love that.
Oh, wait, no, that was
But
the last thing I wanted. I know we've danced around this, but directly, games going to the TV in general, like Witcher, Dragon's Dogma, Cuphead, Castlevania. Is this a good move or a bad move?
It's an interesting move.
no, it's not. It's no, dude. Everything is owned by like either Disney or someone else. Like the whole fucking movie and TV industry. Why wouldn't they want to get into this? Why wouldn't they want to try to kind of? It's the same thing I was saying about video game movies. Like it's good to have separate TV shows and movies and video games. From a creative and philosophical standpoint, it's good to have all three. You don't need to merge all three of them into one big unified cash grab machine. Like
It's like going back to our actor video.
Let the people that are good at making video games make video games, and let the people that are good at making movies and TV shows make movies and TV shows. Don't force them to do all one thing because it's profitable. That's why you end up with 4 fucking Toy Story movies. Like, they're classic. The original ones are classic, but like, you need to come up with some new ideas.
Toy Story 2, fucking gold, solid.
It's gonna be fucking Toy Story 16.
I mean, I agree with you until I think that the Witcher game, which is regarded to be one of the best of the generation, wouldn't have happened if the books had not, if it hadn't been.
But well, I have no problem with crossovers. Like, if they're both done well, and if it's like, I want to expand this story instead of this game franchise is popular. I bet if we make a TV show, we can, grab on their coattails, because that's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. Like, yeah. and that never works because you're not the original. Everybody knows you're not the original the second they watch it, and they figure out that you're just leeching off of their popularity. If you genuinely want to do it right, you have to put your own kind of direction into it.
I agree that it kind of represents the laziness and kind of, moribund, state of the film and TV industry, that they're just kind of regurgitating, like, just IP from other genres, old IP, sequels, reboots, remakes, like anything that's, low risk, just do that, just push that shit out. I meant it was interesting in that I'm not sure whether or not it's going to work commercially and to what extent it's going to work creatively. I think there are things that are better suited for it, things that are clearly, in my opinion, worse suited for it. I'm interested to see how it plays out and if they continue to if this becomes a real trend, kind of like Chris is suggesting.
Anything for you, Jake?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I would hate to see this become like a trend like we're seeing now.
Sonic movie.
But I don't know. I think I'm excited for The Witcher, and I think they could do. I think there are cases where games can adapt well. I mean, I'm sure there were people that were saying, "Oh, let's leave books and movies separate." At one point, I'm sure there are people that were saying, "Oh, let's keep comic books and movies separate." But now, that's the biggest generator of movies in the world.
Right, and everybody says they're good, but it's still not a new idea. It's really not a Netflix original because it's not their idea. It's their interpretation of someone else's original idea. I'm against comic book movies as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could. I think there are cases where it'll work, and I'm hoping The Witcher is one of them.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the inverse right now, where like, think about TV shows specifically that have gotten video games, but then like that have gotten good video games, and part of it's hard because they try to coordinate the game release with like the season of the TV show. Like the Stranger Things season 3 game came out the week Stranger Things came out, so I'm sure the game didn't get as much time as it needed necessarily to develop. But the games that do well, so like you think of like there was a South Park game on the N64 that was trash, but then you think of like the South Park Stick of Truth game, or like Simpsons Hit and Run, where they make a game first and they use the IP second. So I guess I'm thinking that's like the best way for this to work. Like when you make the Dragon's Dogma show or the Witcher show, you make a good show first and use the IP second.
But the counterpoint to that is, think of how many shit South Park and Simpsons games there have been over the years.
Well, that's why I was saying, to an extent, I'm sure you're not getting passionate like, to an extent, yeah, there's some cash grabbing going on, but when
there's a lot of cash grabbing going on.
Yeah, but assuming things are good, assuming you're making a good game, or you're making a good show, then that I'm just thinking of like the right way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's shit everything out there,
Yeah.
but I think The Witcher will be good. It looks good,
I agree.
and the story is fantastic. I
Really,
think
really good source material.
I think it lends itself possibly better to TV than to video games. We'll see.
I agree with that.
We'll see. All right. I think that wraps this one. Do you have any thoughts, Brian?
Well, I don't really have any thoughts. I feel that I've expressed all of my thoughts. So if you, as our viewers, have any thoughts, go ahead and chisel them on down there in the word box. And like Chris said at the beginning of the video, you'll be automatically entered into a chance to win some Steam codes. So go ahead and click on that subscribe button, because if you do, you'll, like I said, be entered into that chance to win Steam codes. So go ahead and click the subscribe button, because you probably like it if you watch this far. And smoke them if you get them, guys. That's all from me tonight, Chris.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Catch you guys next time.